This chapter is about understanding the building blocks of ComfyUI and how they connect to form a workflow. We are in ComfyUI, and we have this blank canvas and workflow. To add a node, you double-click on the canvas, and it will open a search box that lets you search for a node. For example, if I type the word load, it shows me load image, load checkpoint, and all kinds of nodes that let us load something. If we click on the load image node, it will be added to the workflow. The position where it is added depends on where you double-click on the canvas. You can also move it after. You just left-click on a node, hold the left mouse button, drag it to where you want it, and then release the button. To deselect a node, you just click anywhere on the empty canvas. For me, that is the fastest way to add a node, but there are other methods. For example, I can right-click on the canvas in an empty area and get this menu. From here, I can go to Add Node, then I see different categories. If I click on the image category, I can find the Load Image node. It is right here, and if I click on it, it gets added to the canvas. After that, you can move it and arrange it wherever you want. Another method is to use the node library in the left sidebar. Here, we have all these categories. If I click on the image category, I can see the Load Image node. This is a good option if you do not know exactly which node you are looking for. You can also search for a node here to filter the list, then add the node or drag it onto the canvas. Out of all these methods, my favorite is still the double-click on the canvas. Once a node is selected, you also have the option to delete it using this icon. You can also use the delete key or the backspace key to delete a node after you select it. The load image node is how we bring an existing image into ComfyUI so other nodes can work with it. Each node has a title at the top that tells you what it does. Below that, it has controls, inputs, and outputs that connect it to the rest of the workflow. Let us double-click on the canvas again and add another node. This time, I will search for crop, and we get this node called image crop. You can probably guess what it does. It crops the image that we loaded. You can change the image using this button and upload any image you want. If something goes into a node, it is called an input. If something comes out of a node, it is called an output. The load image node has two outputs, but no inputs, because the image comes directly from your computer, not from another node. The image crop node has one image input and one image output. It receives an image, modifies it, and then sends out a new image. If we left-click on one of the outputs from the load image node, we can drag a connection or a cable to the next node and connect it. Because the output and the input have the same color and the same name, it is easy to see that they belong together. In most cases, connections work between the same colors, and different colors usually do not connect. There are a few special cases, but we will talk about those later. Now, if I try to connect the green output, it does not connect. That is because the green output is a mask, and the input on this node expects an image, which is blue. In the beginning, this color system helps you quickly understand which nodes can be connected. If two nodes cannot connect, it usually means they are not meant to be connected. Sometimes you will also find nodes that act like adapters or converters. These nodes take one type of output and convert it into a different type so it can be used by another node. Now, basically, we have a workflow, but is the workflow complete? How can we test it? It is simple. We run it and see what message we get. In this case, it says the prompt has no output. Even if you do not understand exactly what that means yet, try to figure it out from the words. We do not have an output node, so let us close this message. If we look at the workflow, the image is loaded from the computer, then it goes into the image crop node, which crops the image. But after that, nothing happens. There is no output. Think of this like editing a photo in Photoshop. You load an image, crop it, but if you never save or export it, the work exists, but you do not get a file. In ComfyUI, the Save Image node is the export step. So let us double-click on the canvas again and search for Save. We have this Save Image node. We can see that the image output color matches, so we can connect it. Even if the label says Image or Images, it still works. Now let us make the connection. If we run the workflow, it will process from left to right. The image is loaded, cropped, and then saved in the output folder. We can also see it directly inside the Save Image node. All nodes can be resized using the corners. You will see small arrow indicators on the corners. You can click and drag to resize a node. In this case, I want to see the image preview bigger, so I resize the node. To remove a connection, you can left-click on the output dot, drag the cable out onto the canvas, and it will disconnect. You can also left-click on the small dot in the middle of the connection and choose Delete. You also have the option to add a reroute. A reroute is like an extension cable or a cable organizer. It does not change the data at all. It only helps you route connections more cleanly and keep your workflow readable. From that reroute node, you can add another link to another node if you want. You can also have multiple reroutes on the same link, so you can arrange nodes, links, and reroutes in a way that looks visually clean or helps you see faster which node connects to which node. This is very helpful when you have a lot of nodes in a workflow. To remove a reroute, you just select it and press the Delete key. Let me arrange them and remove all links so we can see it better. So, in ComfyUI, we have different types of nodes. First, we have nodes that only have outputs. These nodes usually load something from outside ComfyUI, like a file or some text. In this case, the Load Image node loads an image from your computer, so it does not need any inputs, only outputs. Then we have nodes that have both inputs and outputs. These nodes are usually placed in the middle of a workflow. They receive something from one node, process it, and then pass the result to the next node. Finally, we have nodes that usually sit at the end of a workflow. These nodes only have inputs, and their job is to show or save the result, for example by previewing an image or saving it to disk. There are also nodes that do not have any inputs or outputs at all. For example, if I search for a note node and add it to the canvas, you can see that it is only informational. These nodes are used to write notes and make workflows easier to understand and remember. They do not affect the workflow at all and are just for organization and clarity. On the top left side of a node, next to the title, you have a small gray dot. If you click it, the node collapses, similar to minimizing it. I often do this for nodes where I already know the settings and do not need to change them. Collapsing nodes helps save space and makes the workflow easier to read. If you right-click on a node, you get a menu called the Node Context menu. This menu shows options related to that specific node. Each node has a slightly different menu depending on what that node does. In this case, we have options like opening, saving, and copying the image, different properties, resize, and colors. We can also collapse the node from here instead of using the gray dot, and there are many more options. Try a few of them. If you do not like what you did, you can undo it with Ctrl+Z. You can also change the title of a node. If you double-click on the node title, you can rename it to anything you want. This does not change how the node works at all. It is only for your own organization and to make the workflow easier to understand. You can also right-click on a node and choose Title to rename it. This is another way to change the node name. We already know that we can move a node around once it is selected, but when a node is selected, you will also see a small floating bar at the top. From here, you can delete the node using this icon. You can also click on this dot to change the node color. This lets you choose from different colors, which is useful for organizing your workflow or grouping nodes by function. Changing the color does not affect how the node works. By default, there is no color, the gray one. This small eye icon is the node info. If you click it, a properties panel opens on the right with more information about the node. Here you can see what the node is supposed to do and what the values mean. From this icon, you can also close the Properties panel. All nodes, especially the default ComfyUI nodes, should have some kind of info, unless it is a custom node and the creator did not add any documentation. You can drag this side panel and resize it the way you like. Here you can see all the information about the image crop node and what each setting does. Let us close it for now. If you hover over an icon, you can see more information about what it does. For example, because this node works with images, it lets you open it in the mask editor. If we click on it, you can see that it opens in the mask editor. This will be useful later when we do in-painting and image editing, but that is for another episode. For now, it is enough to know that it is here and you will learn more about it over time. These numbers are just settings that you can change. In ComfyUI, they are called parameters. Parameters control how a node behaves and how it processes its input. Let me reconnect the nodes so we have a working workflow again. Now, if I run it, you can see what these parameters actually do. We are cropping a 512 by 512 pixel area from the original image, starting from the X and Y coordinates set to 0. That means the crop starts from the top left corner of the image. So basically, we are taking this small corner from the original image. The original image was 1024 by 1024 pixels, and now the result is 512 by 512 pixels. Even if it looks bigger here in the node preview, it is not actually larger. That is just the preview size. The real image resolution is smaller. So let us change some parameters, or settings, or however it is easier for you to remember them. Values is also fine, and run it again. Now we have a different crop. Let me speed up the video while I try different values, so you can see how the result changes. Let us remove this middle node, the image crop node. Once it is removed, something interesting happens. ComfyUI tries to keep the workflow connected and automatically reconnects the nodes directly. That happens because the output of the first node and the input of the last node use the same type. If the first and last nodes had different input and output types, the connection would disappear when the middle node is removed. Now let us double-click on the canvas. You should remember by now that every time you see this search bar, it means I double-clicked on the canvas. Let us search for invert and select invert image. This node has an image input and an image output, but it does not have any parameters. That is because this node is designed to do one specific thing: invert the image. Even without parameters, the node still performs a function. Let us connect this node into the workflow. Watch what happens when I connect it to the input. You can see that the previous connection is removed automatically. That is because an input can only have one connection at a time. An output, on the other hand, can connect to multiple nodes. You can think of it like electricity. An output is like a power strip. It can send power to many devices. An input is like a wall socket. It can only accept one plug at a time. If we run the workflow now, we can see that the result is an inverted image. So until now, with these small workflows, we did not use any AI. We only used simple nodes, like simple code, to modify images. We will see more in the next chapter, when we build a bigger workflow that uses Stable Diffusion to generate an image from text. But these small steps help you understand how things work. At least I hope they do. You can always ask any questions you have on Discord, as we will have a special section for this episode on the Discord forum. So we learned that save image is usually the last node in a workflow, since it does not have any outputs, and because the output is an image that goes to disk, not to another node. But that does not mean we cannot continue the workflow. It only means we cannot continue from that node. We can still continue from the previous node, which has the same image, just not saved to disk yet. Let us clone this node and use it again. One simple way is to press the Alt key and drag a copy of this node where you want it. Let us delete it and try again. Now we will use Ctrl+C to copy, and when I use Ctrl+V, it will paste that node where the mouse cursor is. Let us delete it again, and now let me show you another shortcut. Press the Control key and make a marquee selection over the nodes you want to select. Now we selected two nodes. With Ctrl+C, we copy all selected nodes, and with Ctrl+V, we paste them. If you click and drag from any of the selected nodes, you can move them together. If you press Delete while both are selected, it will remove both. If we use Ctrl+Shift+V, it will paste the nodes together with the links they had in the workflow. Now we have this extra link here. So basically, from one image, we got two invert image nodes, and both do the same thing, invert the image. If the invert image node had more parameters, we could change the settings in one and get different results. Let us delete those again. Practice this a few times. Press Ctrl and select the nodes, Press Ctrl plus C to copy and Ctrl plus V to paste. Move them into position. Now look at what I am doing. I am continuing the workflow from the last invert image node, and then I save the result. A workflow can have many branches, like a tree. The root starts with the image, then it inverts the image, and from there, on another branch, it inverts it again. Can you guess what happens when I press run? The image is inverted again and looks like the normal image. The original image is inverted, then that inverted image is inverted again, and we get the original result. We can continue the workflow even more. From the image that was inverted twice, we connect it to an image crop node. Now, instead of double-clicking and searching for a node, we can drag a connection and release it. When we do that, a context menu appears with suggested nodes. From here, I can easily pick the Save Image node, and it is added already connected. Let us delete it and try again. Drag the connection and release it, then select Search. When I select the Save Image node, it is added already connected. Let us place the nodes properly and run the workflow. You can see how many operations are now in this workflow. With a single image, we can invert it again, crop it, and save it. This is similar to a small program or an action in Photoshop, but with more control and much more flexibility. There are nodes for images, audio, 3D, and many other things. This is where you start to see the power of ComfyUI. Now let us select everything. Hold Ctrl and drag to select all nodes. You can press Delete to remove everything. Or let us cancel that and do it another way. Go to the menu, then Edit, and choose Clear Workflow. It will ask if you want to clear it. Click OK, and now we have a blank workflow again. Do you like math? I know you do not like it, but I just want to show something quick to see the different things it can do and help you understand ComfyUI better. Double-click on the canvas and search for math. You will see a few math nodes. If we look on the right, you can see different names like ComfyUI Core, KJ Nodes, Easy Use. These names are the names of custom nodes or extensions. By default, ComfyUI comes only with the nodes you see under ComfyUI Core. With the Easy Installer, you also get a few extra custom nodes already installed. We will talk more about custom nodes later, when we get to the manager. If you use the Easy Installer like I showed at the beginning of this video and install the same version, you should have the same nodes. So again, ComfyUI Core nodes are made by the ComfyUI team. Let us get back to the math nodes. We will start with something simple, called math_int. Int comes from the word integer, which means whole numbers. This node works only with whole numbers, like 1, 2, 10, and so on, not decimals. All custom nodes have an extra label on the top right that shows which custom node pack they belong to. This makes them easy to spot compared to built-in nodes. These math nodes are used for simple calculations, similar to a calculator. I personally do not use math nodes very often, but they can be very useful for automation. For example, you might load an image, read its width or height, and then use math nodes to calculate a new value based on that size. This allows you to automatically adjust things like resolution without manually changing numbers every time. In this case, we have letter A, letter B, and an operation. The default operation is add. Let us set A to 5 and B to 3. For the operation, we will leave it on add for now. Let us add another node that I use often, called preview as text. You can see it comes with ComfyUI. This is one of those special nodes I mentioned earlier that can be connected to almost anything. Even if other nodes cannot connect directly, this node will convert the value to text and display it. If I run the workflow, you can see the result. Even though they look the same, one is actually a number and the other is a text display of that number. This makes more sense if you have coding experience, but we will not get into technical details here. What is important to remember is that we can use this node to see a result as text. It also has options for how the preview is displayed. Let us move this node down and make a copy of the math_int node. Now remember, we have a result in this node, but it is not visible unless we use a node to preview or save it. Here is something interesting. We do not see any inputs on this node, but when we drag a link to it, 2 input dots appear. This means we can actually connect values directly to these fields. You will see this behavior with many nodes that have number fields or text fields. We can copy a value from an output and feed it into these fields to use it in the workflow. Notice how the field for letter A is grayed out. That means it is no longer using a manual value. Instead, it is taking the value from the previous node, which is 8. Now let us change the operation to multiply. We now have 8 multiplied by 3. Let us add another preview as text node to see the result. When we run it, the result is 24, as expected. Let us remove that preview node and arrange the layout. This small workflow does something simple. It adds 2 numbers, and then the result is multiplied by 3. That 3 could also come from another node, and so on, until you build more complex workflows. If I change the value to 4 and run it again, we get the correct result for that formula. I hope this was not too much math. Now let us select the middle node that does the multiplication and right-click on it. We have a function called bypass. When we enable bypass, the node is temporarily ignored, as if it is not part of the workflow. By the way, you can also access bypass quickly from this icon when the node is selected. Now if I run the workflow, you can see it ignored that node and only did the addition. If I enable it again and run the workflow, it takes that node into account again. You can see that the node changes color and becomes purple and semi-transparent. This visual change tells us that the node is deactivated. Bypassing a node is useful when you want to test a workflow without removing the node completely. Hold the Control key and select all 3 nodes. Now, if we right-click on an empty area of the canvas, we have the option to add a group. If we choose Add Group, it will create an empty group. But since we already selected the nodes, it is better to choose Add Group for selected nodes. This creates a group that contains all those nodes. You can think of a group like a folder that holds multiple nodes together. One very important thing to remember is that if you want to move the group with all the nodes inside, you need to drag it using the group's top bar. If you select and move an individual node, it will move outside of the group. Groups can also be resized. You can see a small triangle in the corner that lets you change the size of the group. If you right-click on a group, you also have the option to bypass all the nodes inside it. This is very useful when you have multiple workflows on the same canvas. For example, you can deactivate one workflow and enable another, so only one workflow runs at a time. This becomes important as workflows get more complex and models get larger, because running multiple workflows at once can require more resources than your system can handle. If you double-click on the group title, you can change the group name. Enough with math. Let us work a little with text as well. When we use AI, we give it prompts, and sometimes it helps to combine text from different sources to get a better prompt. Now I am searching for concat, and you can see that there are multiple nodes with similar names. That is because concatenate is a general concept, and it exists for different data types. This one here, concatenate, works with strings, which means text. It simply takes multiple pieces of text and joins them together into a single string. That is why I added this cat made from multiple pieces joined together, to make it easier to remember. Even if you search for cat, you can easily find the concatenate node. Let us add it to the canvas. For example, for string A, I add the word home, and for string B, the word car. When I connect them, the output becomes a single piece of text, a string. Let us drag a connection from that string and search for a node that can preview it. We can use the same preview as text node again. Now, because the first workflow is bypassed, it will only run this workflow with concatenate. You can see how it joined those two words, first home, then car. We can also use a delimiter. For example, I can add a space here and run it again. Now the result has a space between the words. Or I can add a comma and a space, and now the result looks like proper text with separation. Let us move this node down and hold Alt and drag a copy of the concatenate node. You can move nodes around to make room so the connections are easier to see. Here we have these text fields, and like you saw with the math nodes, we can connect outputs directly into these fields if they are the same type. When I drag a link from the string output, you will see input dots appear, showing that I can connect there. I can connect to the first field, the second field, or even the delimiter. Let us connect it to the first field. So now the home and car result becomes the first input, and for the second field, let us add the word flower. I will hold Alt again and drag another duplicate since that is faster. Then I connect it. Can you guess the result? We now get home, car, and flower. So basically, this is how people create workflows. You connect nodes like Lego pieces. Some nodes can be connected together because they share the same input and output types, and you get a result. Over time, you can build more complex workflows that can save you a lot of time. Let's add another node. Double-click on the canvas and search for primitive. This node is called primitive because it represents the most basic types of values. Things like numbers, text, and true or false values are considered primitive values. The primitive node is used to manually create a value inside ComfyUI instead of getting it from another node. You can use it to type in a number, write some text, or define a simple value that can then be connected to other nodes. Think of it like writing a value by hand and injecting it into the workflow. You can see here it says connect to the widget input, so we can drag a link from there. Now you can see we have a lot of inputs where we can connect this value. If we look at this text, notice what happens when the connection is complete. It changes to the type of value that was connected, a string. Now we can manually insert any text value there. When we run the workflow, the result will include that value. This is useful because sometimes you want to use the same value in multiple nodes. Instead of typing it manually each time, you add a primitive value once and connect it to all the inputs that need it. Let us right-click on this group. Usually, nodes have a bypass option to disable or enable them, but for groups, this option is called Set Group Nodes to Always.